At its peak, the Silk Road carried goods worth more than the entire GDP of most modern nations combined, connecting over 40 countries across a network spanning more than 7,000 miles. One road. Thousands of years. And it changed absolutely everything. Most people think the Silk Road was simply a trade route for moving silk from China to Rome. But that single idea barely scratches the surface of what this network actually was. In the next 10 minutes, you will discover how a series of dusty desert paths became the internet of the ancient world, how it spread religions, diseases, and ideas with equal efficiency, and why the most important thing the Silk Road ever carried was not silk at all. That final answer will completely reframe how you think about globalization itself. To understand the Silk Road, you need to go back to roughly 130 BCE. China was under the rule of Emperor Wu of the Han Dynasty, and he had a problem. The nomadic Xiongnu Confederation was raiding his northern borders relentlessly. Wu needed allies. He sent a diplomat named Zhong Qian westward to forge military partnerships with peoples beyond the known world. Zhong Qian was captured, held for years, eventually escaped, and returned to China with something more valuable than any military alliance. He brought back detailed knowledge of the lands to the west, including the Fergana Valley and its legendary heavenly horses, which the Han military desperately needed. Emperor Wu sent soldiers west to acquire those horses, and in doing so, he cracked open a pathway that would define civilization for the next 14 centuries. The term Silk Road itself was not coined until 1877 by German geographer Ferdinand von Richthofen. The people who actually traveled it never called it that. To them, it was simply the road, the passage, the way through. And it was not one road at all. It was a living, shifting web of overland routes and maritime corridors that connected China through Central Asia, Persia, and the Arabian Peninsula all the way to the Mediterranean coast. Caravans rarely traveled the entire length. Instead, merchants would carry goods from city to city, handing them off like a relay race across continents. The goods themselves were extraordinary. Chinese silk was the anchor product, prized across the Roman Empire to such a degree that Roman senators actually passed laws trying to ban its import because it was draining the empire of silver. Glass was moved eastward from Rome and Persia, since China had not yet mastered its production. Spices like pepper, cinnamon, and cardamom came from South and Southeast Asia. Cotton textiles flowed from India. Lapis lazuli mined in modern Afghanistan showed up in Egyptian tombs. Horses, jade, ivory, gold, and exotic animals all moved across this network in quantities that stagger the imagination. But here is what nobody talks about. The real power of the Silk Road was never in the physical goods. It was in the invisible cargo. Buddhism traveled east from India along these routes and took root in China, eventually spreading to Korea and Japan, transforming entire civilizations. Islam later moved in multiple directions simultaneously, carried by merchants whose trading relationships doubled as missionary work. Christianity spread eastward along Silk Road corridors into Persia, Central Asia, and even reached Tang Dynasty China, where Nestorian Christian communities built churches as early as the 7th century CE. The Silk Road was, in the most literal sense, a highway for ideas. Mathematics was another invisible passenger. The concept of zero, developed in India, moved westward along trade routes into the Arab world, and from there into Europe. Without that single mathematical idea traveling this network, modern science would be incalculably different. Paper, invented in China, followed a similar path. After Arab forces captured Chinese papermakers at the Battle of Talas in 751 CE, the technology spread rapidly through the Islamic world and eventually into Europe, enabling the printing revolution that would reshape Western civilization centuries later. The cities that grew along the Silk Road became some of the most cosmopolitan places in human history. Samarkand, in modern Uzbekistan, was a crossroads of extraordinary cultural richness. At its peak, it was home to scholars, merchants, artists, and diplomats from dozens of nations simultaneously. The Tang Dynasty capital of Chang'an, modern Lebanon, hosted over 1 million people and contained communities of Persians, Sogdians, Turks, Indians, and Arabs living and working alongside the Chinese population. These were not simply trading posts. They were laboratories where cultures collided, mixed, and evolved. The Sogdians deserve special recognition here because most people have never heard of them. These merchants from modern-day Uzbekistan and Tajikistan were the backbone of Silk Road commerce for centuries. They established trading colonies across Central Asia, maintained written contracts and letters of credit that functioned as sophisticated financial instruments, and served as cultural middlemen between East and West. When archaeologists discovered a cache of 4th century Sogdian letters in a watchtower in northwestern China, those letters revealed an already mature, professional, international trading system operating with remarkable efficiency. The question every student eventually asks is this: who controlled the Silk Road, and how did they profit? The answer changed constantly. The Parthian Empire of Persia controlled critical central sections for centuries and profited enormously from taxing transit trade. The Kushan Empire linked India to Central Asia and China. Later, the Byzantine Empire and Sassanid Persian Empire competed fiercely for control of western access points. The Tang dynasty of China extended its reach deep into Central Asia specifically to protect and dominate its end of the network. Control of the Silk Road was one of the defining geopolitical ambitions of the ancient and medieval world. And then there was disease. The same routes that carried silk and spices also carried pathogens. The Antonine Plague, which devastated the Roman Empire in the 2nd century CE, likely traveled along Silk Road trade corridors from the east. More devastatingly, the Black Death, which killed somewhere between 30 and 60% of Europe's population in the 14th century, originated in Central Asia and spread westward precisely along Silk Road trade routes. The Mongol Empire, which at its height controlled more of the Silk Road than any single power before or since, may have inadvertently accelerated that plague's transmission through its unified political network. The road gave, and the road took away with brutal efficiency. The Mongol period is itself worth pausing on. The Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace enforced across their vast empire in the 13th and 14th centuries, actually enabled one of the most intensive periods of Silk Road exchange in history. A single traveler could theoretically journey from the Pacific coast to Eastern Europe under Mongol protection. Marco Polo did exactly this, and his accounts, whether entirely accurate or partly embellished, opened European imaginations to the wealth of Asia in ways that would eventually drive the age of exploration. European rulers, desperate to find direct routes to Asian markets and bypass the middlemen controlling the Silk Road, funded expeditions that accidentally bumped into the Americas. The Silk Road, in its decline, helped trigger the discovery of an entirely new world. The formal decline came in the 15th century as Ottoman expansion made overland trade more difficult and expensive, and as European maritime technology improved enough to make sea routes viable alternatives. The Portuguese rounding of Africa's Cape of Good Hope in 1488 offered a direct ocean path to Asian spices that bypassed the entire overland network. The economics shifted irreversibly, and the Great Silk Road cities began their long fades into history. What the Silk Road ultimately teaches us is that connection is the engine of civilization. Every meaningful advance in human culture, technology, and knowledge has been accelerated by exchange. Isolation produces stagnation. The ancient world figured this out through sheer necessity and ambition, and built a network that knitted together half the globe. The smartphone in your pocket, the religion you may practice, the mathematical systems underlying all modern technology, the very paper this script might once have been printed on, all of it traces a line back through history to those caravans crossing the Taklamakan Desert and the Hindu Kush. The most connected civilizations have always been the most powerful. The Silk Road proved that truth 4,000 miles at a time, across 14 centuries, and the lesson has never stopped being relevant. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to History Vault YT for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.